And we are live. Welcome to Ghost Stories with Cara and Debbie. And we have a treat for you all tonight. Our book and collaboration, our labor of love, and the first book in our series has just launched on Amazon. The Past Lives of Deborah O'Hara. Portals.
Yay!
Yay. This,
Congratulations.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for helping with the editing process. It was amazing.
Oh, Brandi, you're wonderful.
You
Wonderful. Thank
are.
you so
Do my
much.
best.
Oh, fabulous.
And we want to thank Rebecca Wheeler, our beautiful illustrator who did our cover, and she plans on doing the covers for all the series. And we are so excited for this book to be out. Like I said, it's our labor of love. This book is amazing and it's readable for anyone, even young teens, sixth grade and up. And it gives history, it gives seances and ghosts and spirits, and and the psychic bond, and it's just amazing.
And it
Thank
makes
you,
history
Debbie.
fun.
Yes, it makes history fun. Thank you.
So, the book is going to be a lot of fun to go through, look at the historical things, lots of magic in it, and comedy as well.
Yes,
But we really wanted to make sure historically it had a lot of accuracy in it. And we don't want to give out too much to you, but there's something for everybody in this book. So be awesome.
absolutely.
I'm going to just put here that I think this series, and we probably need to talk to that about that a little bit, is even it's very easy to read, but probably geared to the older teens and
Yeah,
up. The series has going to have lots of adventures and lots of books because we have storyboards for many, many books.
many.
So please, it's on Amazon you can read it on Kindle and paperback and hardcover if you want to do that. We're going to actually, Cara, we're going to try to have a way where they can get signed books too, right?
Absolutely. Yes. We are going to, and we're probably going to in the next few weeks, we're going to have a little contest like we usually do with sharing our show and receiving an autographed book, a signed book by Debbie and myself.
That's exciting. So
Yes,
we'll probably try to do some events where we are signing books and stuff. We're working on book 2 already, though,
yes.
and that is exciting.
Do we want to give them a teaser of the name of the second book?
I think so, because if they buy the first book, they get to peek at the second book.
That is true. Our second book title is The Past Lives of Deborah O'Hara, Karma at Karnak Court. So if you look up Karnak Court, you'll find out where we're traveling to.
It's exciting. I do want to put this up, though, you guys. Still, we have this wonderful book that, uh, if you like horror type of books, this is exciting and also supernatural. The Shadows of Satan by Cara.
Yay. Thank you.
So you guys can get a hold of Cara, and I'm sure she'll sign some books for you and send them out. And a lot of exciting things for really launching Cara's book. Cara, I think that you're going to be doing maybe some festivals and being out and about and signing books. So I think that's going to be really fun.
Absolutely. I am looking forward to it. I do want to say I see Kate is in here. Hi, Kate. And hi, Becky. Our
Ah,
illustrator is in.
she did
Yes.
a wonderful
She
job.
did an amazing
Wonderful
job.
job.
It's fun watching her go through the process of it.
Yeah, she's amazing. You are
Wow.
totally amazing, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. And and Rebecca's going to be on all of our books as our illustrator. We're going to make her super famous. So you guys heard about it now. So
Yes.
good.
And if you ever need a graphic artist, you can ask us for contact information for Rebecca, and she is amazing. And you can't go wrong with her. She's just amazing.
Oh yeah, fabulous, fabulous. So I am going to ask everybody to share the show. Get some people in here. Tonight we're doing Deadly Women. I think I got. I'm not going to say who yet, but I think I got the most deadly serial killer in the world.
I would
Oh my
say, yeah,
gosh!
most prolific ever.
Yes.
Really,
Yes.
really. Actually, when I was kind of looking around, Brandi, you're going to be going first. Thank you, Becky,
Yes.
for sharing. And yours was, I go, oh, I would like that one. That one's very
I would have
interesting.
loved to. I would have traded with you because I love your story. It's one of my all-time favorites.
Well,
So
we're going to have lots of discussion to whatever you guys
Yeah.
know about it. Bring that all in because I'm really just learning about her. But I do have stories of the ghosts that they see in that castle. So we'll be talking about that. I'm going to get a picture up here for you, Brandi.
okay.
And so let me get her defined. There she is. Wasn't she pretty?
She was beautiful.
That's why she was able to do
I
what she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had her in her wedding dress, which I hear came up later in life.
Yes. Yes. It
Um,
will come up.
but oh yeah, gorgeous, gorgeous. So we're gonna go ahead and start, right, Cara?
Yes, Brandy, take it away on Lavinia Fisher.
Yep. I am covering Lavinia Fisher. Has been named the first female serial killer. She was born in 1793 in Charleston. This would be the same city that she would do all of her misdeeds and eventually grow up to haunt here. But she married a man named John Fisher, and they ran an inn outside of Charleston known as the 6 Mile House. Now, it's the site of the old Navy Hospital, but it was a temporary home to travelers visiting the area on their way to trade goods, and they was a little bit outside of town, so it wasn't like dead center town here for this inn. But they would, when they was returning from doing their business in town and carrying loads of cash because they just sold all their goods, they would stop in and they'd do some gambling and stay the night, get some food. But because it was close enough to town, but still a little bit out of the way, it was a very popular choice for gangsters and highwaymen to hang out at this place. And they was notorious for, playing innocent games of poker and other dice and stuff. And, they didn't play fair. They never play fair. But that was their way of cheating all these innocent guests out of their money. But for Lavinia and John, this was not enough. That just wasn't enough for them. So they devised a complex plan to profit from the fortune of their guests. And the way they would do it was, as you can see in this picture, she was a very beautiful woman. And she would use that beauty to lure male visitors to stay at the inn. And she would flirt with them and get them comfortable. And then she'd serve them their food and tea that just happened to be laced with oleander. So her guests would eventually either, fall into a deep sleep because oleander is not a good substance to it. It's very toxic. But they wouldn't always die, though. But after she had, poisoned their tea and they passed out, that's when her husband would come into the picture. And John would, if they wasn't already dead, he would either strangle them, bludgeon them, whatever it was to kill them so he could take all their belongings. And then he would dismember their bodies in the cellar of the inn. Now, eventually, word got around, people started noticing, and the sheriffs did a raid on the house. And during this raid, they had 2 people that claimed to have escaped her trying to kill them, but they got away.
Yeah.
Now, eventually they did get arrested, and the 6 Mile house was thoroughly searched for any evidence of these missing men that they'd stolen all their goods from. They tore the grounds apart, and they took the possessions of disappeared visitors. They found Lavinia's sleeping potion and the trap door apparatus where they was taking these people downstairs to dismember, which made their MO very clear and obvious. So you could see a pattern. But as of May of 1819, they had been arrested and their trial begins. Now, they was ultimately going for a murder conviction. That was the main goal. But based on the number of possessions found in the basement, the jury was not able to convict the Fishers on multiple multiple murders. They did convict them on highway robbery charges, though, which at that time was a capital offense and punishable by hanging.
Yeah.
So even though they didn't get him for murder, they still got him on the death penalty.
Oh, yeah.
Now, they did request an appeal, and during the appeal, John and Lavinia both shared a small prison cell, which we don't do nowadays, of course, but they shared one. And with 2 other prisoners, they attempted to escape. It wasn't very successful because it was a very flawed plan, but they spent their time creating a hole in the prison wall and crafting a rope out of linens in their cell. And they were able to climb out of the prison wall, but the rope broke. So they didn't get very far.
You can see that jail right now.
And
not
the
easy.
Other 2 prisoners actually escaped, but Lavinia and John didn't make it. So they ended up back in the cell, and they increased their watch over the couple, of course. But in the end, the appeal didn't go through, and they had to face the gallows, I guess you could say. John went peacefully. I mean, he didn't argue or anything like that. He'd made peace with what he had done and what his fate was, and he went quietly to his death. Lavinia, on the other hand, she was not going quietly. She wanted everybody to know that they was wrong, and they was just abusing her rights as a person by doing this to her. And she went to her death literally wearing her wedding dress to be very noticeable. She screamed and she threw a fit and stomped, and I mean, violent refusal all the way, which was a very big contrast to her husband, who just kind of went, yeah, okay, whatever, kill me. She wasn't going that way.
No.
Anyways, in one final act of defiance, instead of just letting them pull the little lever and letting the platform drop out from underneath her, she jumped at the audience and hung herself. And her final words were, if you have a message you want to send to hell, give it to me and I'll carry it. That was her final parting words.
Oh, God.
Now, It is said that they believed she was buried in a cemetery, a pauper cemetery next to the jail. However, her ghost haunts a totally different cemetery. So one she wasn't even buried in. And I believe it was called the Unitarian Cemetery. But she wasn't buried there. But she haunts it. And she also haunts the jail that she was kept prisoner in. And
wow.
It's weird because, they said that they buried her in a grave. However, there is documentation that she was never buried. So the Yorkville Inquirer posted proudly on August 8th in 1922 that skeleton on display. The article goes on to explain Lavinia Fisher's skeleton was exhibited at the Charleston Museum some time ago. However, it was removed because it was out of order. It was all scrambled apart and stuff. But the museum had decided to install them again after it being put in order. So she's never been buried. So why she's haunting cemeteries, I'm not really for sure.
Oh, my gosh.
But you can see her face in the windows of like when you're walking up to the prison, you can see her face, or the jailhouse is one of the claims that you get. Other claims are you can see her walking around in her wedding dress. and screaming about unfair cruelty and mistreatment.
I
Yeah.
should have put a picture of that wedding dress. The veil and everything was just
Yeah,
opulent.
Very opulent. But there's a, how can I put it? An old detective did some research on his own and has come to the conclusion that he does not believe Lavinia Fisher was a murderer, and that he was only able to find evidence of two bodies found on the site of the inn. Just two bodies, so not enough to even be a serial killer.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure Cara has some ideals on that one.
I do. The interesting thing that they did not do back then, where they did find the two bodies right near their home. However, they did not go searching out into the open acreage around their property, even a couple of miles down. And one of the theories that some people had as they investigated further into this was that after they buried the first two bodies near their property, they got wise and they moved the bodies further out, by wagon or coach, and buried them far away enough to where they wouldn't be, attached to them. And they did find belongings, wallets and different things that had monograms from different people. So there was there was evidence, like John Wayne Gacy collected driver's licenses from his victims. They too collected things, and all the monograms didn't match up with just two victims. Why would you have satchels, so many satchels and different things that they had? So yeah, there's a big controversy with that. And there is one of the reports that I read was the reason that her husband was recaptured is because he walked back into the jail. For
Yeah,
some
that
reason,
he had been a loyal husband, went back for
yeah,
her.
for some reason, she could not get up into the window to climb down. And when the thing finally broke, the makeshift rope, he wasn't about to leave her. Now, I personally would have boosted her up and sent her first, but they didn't. So, but yeah, it's interesting, and I do wonder if there's more bodies buried, or if they've ever done any excavations of near or a few miles away. If they've ever found any skeletal remains and didn't know where they came from. That would
I
be.
almost wonder if they hid bodies in freshly dug graves in that one cemetery she's reported to haunt. Because why else would she haunt there?
Yeah, you know what? That we do know that there's other ghosts of killers who actually haunt the cemeteries of where their victims are. Maybe that's true. Maybe they buried them within a grave that was freshly dug. That would be very clever. And
yes,
yeah. So, but that's a fantastic story, Brandi.
That was a good one.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Now we're gonna we're gonna move on to something that the Lizzie Borden murders, and the hauntings. But there is a backstory on Lizzie Borden that not too many people know about. Now, Lizzie Borden's grandfather had a brother whose name was Lodwick Borden. And he married a woman by the name of Eliza Darling Borden. Now, she was born in 1811 and they got married in 1842. And when they got married, they had 3 children in rapid succession. Her oldest child was born in the end or beginning of either end of 1842 or the beginning of 1843, and the other two children were born in 1846 and 1847, so very, very close. It's rumored that she suffered what we know now is postpartum depression. But she was the great aunt of Lizzie Borden, and in 1848, she snapped. The house that they lived in is right next to this house, right next to the Borden house. And she took her three children down to the basement, opened the cistern, and dumped all three children in. And then she turned and took her husband's straight razor and she slit her throat. And as she lay bleeding to death, she could hear the screams and the pleas of her children. When she was found, they heard the cries of her oldest child, who managed somehow to float in the cistern and was saved. The other two children unfortunately drowned, which is so vile, so disgusting. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
She now her children don't haunt the house they were killed in. No, no, no. See those two windows at the top of the Borden house? Those windows are in the room that Lizzie's cousins, if you will, haunt. And Eliza, ever the domineering, maybe she's grieving mother, is also up in the attic of the Borden house.
And those are been seen before the Lizzie incident, or
yes. They weren't talked about. They did not talk about those things.
Interesting.
Bridget, the maid for the Bordens, later on in life described children's laughter and things, because her room was up there on the third floor. And, today people leave toys in that room, and you can feel a very childlike, presence there. On the other side of the third floor is where Eliza is. And people have gotten physically sick being in that room. They have felt heavy weight on their hearts. They have felt, their chest pounding. They have felt dread, fear, just a horrible presence in there. And some say there's a smell of some kind of perfume, and they wonder if that perfume is the perfume that Eliza wore. But it's interesting that Lizzie was born in 1860, and these children were killed 12 years earlier. So it's kind of an interesting thing. But now we're gonna talk about Lizzie, because Lizzie, there's a lot of ghosts in this house, a lot of ghosts. And Lizzie Borden was born in 1860 to Sarah and Andrew Borden. Her mom died in the end of 1862, I believe. And her father married Abby Borden in 1863, when Lizzie was just turning 3. Now, in between Lizzie and her older sister Emma was another sister who only lived barely 2 years. She was born in 1856 and died in 1858. Some say that's why Emma was so protective and more of a mother to Lizzie, because when their mother died, Emma was 12 years old. So she kind of took on that mother role, and I don't think she appreciated Abby coming in. They believed Abby was a gold digger. But there was a very big, tumultuous relationship between the two girls and their father and stepmother. There were violent fights actually leading up to the murder. At one point, Lizzie and Emma left town on a, like, we'd call it a vacation, but they left town for an excursion. And when they came back, Emma went directly back to the Borden house. However, Lizzie stayed in a rooming house for 4 days before she returned home. And in the meantime, their uncle John Morris, who was their mother's brother, he showed up the day before the murders and was planning on staying for a few days. He may have caused a little bit of friction because the girls were highly upset that their father, who didn't want to give them a dime, nor, pay for real, food that they could eat. He if there was mutton left over, they ate it until it rotted and they got sick. That's how disgusting it was. He gave Abby's sister a brand new home, purchased it for her. That infuriated the girls. Well, their uncle was there and he exasperated the situation. They all ended up sick 2 days before the murder and continued to still be feeling the effects from the rotten mutton that was left on the stove for several days. Abby, paranoid, thought they were being poisoned. But, there was not, it was just the bad meat, bad mutton. Another odd thing about Lizzie that people don't know is it's possible that she had a daughter. As a matter of fact, when you look on Find a Grave, it lists a woman named Laura Irene Rosser. And she is supposed to be a child that Lizzie bore in Alabama in 1880 when Lizzie was 20 years old. Now, there was rumors of incest and things too, so we don't know if that actually is true. But now, the murders took place on 8/4/92, so August 4th, 1892. And the inquest 4 days later, Lizzie contradicted herself. On August 11th, they arrested her on charges of murder. And if you don't know the story of what happened, in the late morning, Abby was making beds in the upstairs, and she was attacked with a hatchet, and she was hit several times. Her skull was completely, crashed, caved in. She had hatchet marks on her back, and she ended up dying face down on the floor on the other side of the bed from where the door was. Lizzie's father came back home that late morning for an afternoon nap, and he was found with his head whacked to pieces. He was unrecognizable in the face by someone as well. So Lizzie gets indicted on December 2nd, and her trial started the following June in 1893. The interesting thing is when her trial was going on, another axe murder occurred 5 days before the opening arguments on June 1st. The similarities were just amazing.
Stunning.
Yes. And a lot of the jurors, they didn't sequester them back then. A lot of the jurors made the connection between the similarities. But further investigation, the Portuguese man who was ultimately convicted of those axe murders, it was found that he was not in town at the time of the Borden murders. So there was nothing else they could do. One of the most, I find, vile things that the prosecution did was they took the skulls they buried the Bordens headless. And they took the skulls, and they presented them on a table at the trial. Now, when Lizzie saw those, Lizzie fainted, which, the jury took as, oh my God, this poor woman having to see the skulls of her father and stepmother.
I think that part there also led to them thinking that she couldn't have done it.
I believe so too. But after they deliberated only an hour and a half, and they acquitted her. And now the funny thing is Bridget Sullivan, who was the maid, on her deathbed, she gave a confession that she changed her testimony to protect Lizzie. But there's some more suspects that we need to delve into before we get into all the ghosts that are there. Her uncle was a suspect because he had not shown up at their house very often over the years, but all of a sudden he's there when all of this these violent infighting is going on. And some people believe that Lizzie contradicted her story and to take the pressure or to protect her uncle, her mother's brother, who she loved dearly. And then there's also but it's been disproven. There was someone claimed and was extorting money from Andrew Borden, claiming to be his illegitimate son, William Borden. And for a time, that gentleman was also a suspect. The crime has never been solved. And Emma and Lizzie moved from this house to a huge mansion that Lizzie called Maplecroft. But there was a party, and Lizzie loved to give parties and be social. She had a party for an actress by the name of Nance, this female actress, and something happened at that party to divide the sisters. Emma was so disgusted by whatever she saw that she left that same week in 1905, and they never saw each other again. The sisters never saw each other again, but they died 9 days apart. So it's very interesting. Now, the hauntings are fun. I shouldn't say fun. The hauntings are interesting. People feel in these homes, and this is going with both homes, but the murder house, people's limbs are pulled, ears being pulled, figures are moving out throughout the rooms. There's a woman in a nightgown that keeps walking around the parents' suite, and they believe that to be Abby just because of the shape of the apparition. Doors move on their own, either opening, closing, sliding, the pocket doors. There are shadow figures in the basement that give you a very very creepy feeling. The hairs on your back of your neck stand up. There are items that are touched in Bridget Sullivan's room on the 3rd floor. And there's voices and footsteps and furniture moves on its own. But the people do leave now toys up on the 3rd floor for Lizzie's cousins, the 2 children who were killed by her Aunt Eliza.
Now that you brought those back up, I'm curious.
Yes.
Because you went through over who possible guilty people. And I'm wondering if, because those 2 kids and the aunt didn't die in that house. They didn't live in that house. So, but they're there. It kind of makes you wonder if the aunt might not have been possibly possessing maybe Lizzie or something.
That's also an interesting thing too, because, they could not find any bloody clothes in the house that had human blood, except for there was some blood on the underskirt of one of her skirts, and they realized it was menstrual blood. But yeah, there is absolutely no reason that they should be, since they died next door. Yeah. There's no reason those children should be in that house, but they are. And that's why people leave toys for them in the one attic room. But it gives you like a conspiracy theory that, like, if there's so much dread on that 3rd floor, maybe something did go on, Yeah. And especially there's the rocking chair that rocks back and forth up there. They have had a chair move across the floor, across the room. and things. But there's interesting things. A psychic medium went to Maplecroft, which is the mansion her and Emma purchased after their dad died. And there were orbs of light that were seen in the front parlor. And it almost looked like he described it as almost like a snowstorm of orbs.
Wow.
Yeah. The other thing is he had images that he could see. He would look in the room and the room transformed to a party. And he saw Lizzie there, and he saw all these different actors and actresses there. And he saw visions, like an imprint of time of an Easter gathering. Lizzie was in a deep purple dress, a deep purple satin dress, and she had the most gray, piercing eyes. And she smiled, but it was like a soft smile. It was like a person who was actually a good person. She was felt to be a good spirit. Emma, on the other hand, has been seen there, and she's not seen as friendly. So one makes you wonder if Emma is the one who snuck back into town, killed them, and went back to where she was to be notified. So there's a lot there, but there's also a conspiracy about Lizzie and her actress friend. I cannot remember her last name. I don't know why I didn't write it down, but Nance was her first name. People believe that it's possible. They were raised very strictly religious. I mean, very religious. Some people believe that Lizzie Borden might have been a lesbian and that Nance might have been her lover. Now, mind you, Lizzie never married and neither did Emma, but Lizzie entertained a lot of women at her home. So it's rumored that it's possible that Emma, the night of that party, found Lizzie and Nance in some kind of compromising position, and that's what led her to never speak to her again and move away. But I mean, they didn't speak for 24 years until they both died in June of 1927. So it makes you wonder what was going on. For one, I'm going to give you my opinion. I don't believe that she did the murders. I believe she covered for somebody.
Yeah.
But that's all I have on Lizzie. But what I'm so excited about is I have got to get to Deborah's or to Debbie's.
Yes.
Debbie's
Yeah.
is my highlight tonight. So Debbie, you've got to bring that in.
I have to go back to Lizzie because I believe that house is for sale right now.
Really?
They both
selling or for sale.
It just sold. It sold about 6 months ago, both houses, and they're owned by a ghost tour and they're bed and breakfast. And you can do paranormal group events at both houses.
So when are you booking all three of us?
Right.
I'm ready.
How fun.
I'm definitely ready.
Anyway, I thought that was interesting. I said, of course it needs to be that. I can't believe anybody that would want to live there. But the biggest thing I took away about Lizzie Borden thing was where they had the heads in court. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
So disgusting. So disgusting.
The lawyer that was going after her was going hard. He wanted to nail that home and that she would spend either life in prison or be hung. He went hard after her, which I think also made the jury feel more sorry for her and get her off because of how hard he went after her.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I mean, just that tactic. I mean, even Kate has something to say about that. It's just,
there we go. Yes.
I want to know: did they go back and bury their heads? Because
I think their heads were on display somewhere. I don't know if they ever with the bodies.
Oh no.
Because they didn't even, get permission or nothing from the family. They didn't even tell the family they kept the heads. It was like they just plopped them on the table. Here you go.
Oh God, surprise! Oh my God, that's it's just unbelievable. But when we go back and we've told a lot of ghost stories and stuff, people made really crazy decisions of, uprooting graves and paving over graves. And, you think that it was so sacred, but no, let's put their chopped heads on the table.
Yeah.
I
Or
mean,
like in my story's case, where they displayed her whole body in a museum. She never
I
got
know.
buried.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh. And they get out of whack and you're going like, I don't know. What kind is this? Just put it here. We'll kind of
Yeah.
make it look like a
It's one
person.
of these bones down here. It's okay.
Yeah. Something. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I wore a vampire shirt, but kind of because of this, but I almost wore red because this was this was so bad.
I think either would have worked.
Oh, Elizabeth Bathory. My goodness. So the Blood Countess has come up through the time of having that little nice label. So let me just tell you a little bit. So a lot of stories swirled around everything that happened. So we're spanning 18th and 19th centuries. The reason they called her the Blood Countess because they thought that she bathed in the blood, the virgin's blood of all the people the girls that she killed to keep herself radiant and beautiful and all of that. Yet that I'm going to just squash this right now. The information came out way later than the crimes. So they're thinking that's just exaggeration. You know how things keep going. You say one thing and it gets bigger and bigger. And we're going to add more stories to it.
More fantastical.
Yeah, because awesome. So anyway, she got a wedding gift of a castle. Now, how many people can get that? She was nobility. And she was Hungarian, by the way. So and I'm trying to pronounce it right, but Chakaza was the name of the castle. So anyway, let me go ahead and get her picture up so everybody can see her. There we go. So you know what? She looks a little bit like Drew Barrymore. Do you guys see that? Do you see it?
Little bit.
I just looked at it. It was like,
oh god, you said the nose, the chin. Yeah.
All right, Drew, I love you. Nobody tell love you. I'm going to show you the ruins right now of the castle. A lot of it is ground down really low now, and it's a nature preserve at this point. Okay, which is good because the history is horrible. So let's go back to her. This is like one of Cara's favorite things. So, okay, so she actually died on August 21st of 1614. And of course, she was a countess, but she was accused of murdering a lot of young girls. And let me tell you this. She was down in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the most prolific serial killers of all time.
Oh, I believe it.
She got the title. They actually, I think it's exaggerated, but they said 650 girls, women were murdered by her. I mean, can you guys imagine 650? And the reason they got that is she actually had a book and wrote down the names of her victims. And there were 650. Now, the book disappeared. So that's when they go, well, maybe it happened. Maybe it didn't. She was convicted, I think, on 80 of them, though. That's enough. That's a lot. Yeah. Let's talk about her husband. He was actually like a war hero and all of that. So a lot was going on where he went out to battle and she was taking care of the estates and she a little bit of governing the local area and all of that. Lots of politics in here. And so she would bring in some of the servants, girls that, were looking for work and bring them in. I think that they are assured that she killed one for, I think, stealing food. But the deal is they were disappearing. So they needed to look into this. And so they did have an investigation, and what happened is, before this, when she was just taking in the poor girls that needed work and this and that and the other, well, maybe she ran out because she started killing off the girls that were not there. They were there, came in as their free or against their free will. They came into the house, and they were had parents and stuff that were, more fluent and all of that. So she kind of went out of the norm of kicking off all the peasant girls and started in on the other ones. Because I mean, really, if it was 650 girls, that is a lot she had to get. So anyway, she was, again, remember, noble birth. And so the king, who actually was in debt to her husband, had debt there. He sent his highest ranking representative to come and do this investigation, because there was all these witnesses, 300 witnesses. They had lots of charges. Somebody had to come in and deal with this. And but let me tell you what she did, because this is horrifying. The charges were awful. So she would torture them. And I believe Cara, her husband, built her a torture chamber. Is that right?
Yes, yes, the torture chamber, and that's why I'm one of the believers that she did bathe in the blood, because the
Hmm.
torture chambers was so, I mean, it was beyond any sadistic thing you could even think of today, to where she would
Mhm.
actually whip these girls until blood was flowing out of them, and she even licked some of the blood,
Yeah.
from what
Yeah,
her co-conspirators said.
yeah. She allegedly burned her victims with hot irons, beat them to death with clubs, stuck needles up their ankles, poured ice water over their bodies, and left them to freeze to death outside in the cold, covered them with honey so that bugs would feast on their exposed skin, sewed their lips together, bit chunks of flesh from their breasts and their faces.
Yes.
And witnesses claimed that her favorite method of torture was using scissors, even cutting between the fingers. And I think they said, let me see, cut off their hands, their noses, and their uh, genitals, and just doing all this crazy stuff. I mean, and who has a torture chamber anyway? So she was crazy. So anyway, what they did was, they're like, did she really do it, or was she something from the devil? Because they were really thinking that maybe she had sex with the devil and all this stuff they were saying. So they were making her out to be a vampire, all kinds of things. But the biggest thing was, was all about that bathing in the blood. That was crazy. So let's go ahead and look at what happened. They did charge her with the deaths of 80 girls. And even though they said they had a witness saying she had a book that said 650 names. And when it ended, all of her accomplices were killed. I think there was a wet nurse, all these people that helped her in the castle, they all were executed. And but she was bricked up and isolated in a room in the castle, where she remained under house arrest for 4 years until her death in 1614, which is according to the history that they have today.
Hmm.
So I mean, she didn't get killed because she was of noble birth, remember? Okay. But the deal was, there was so many politics going on, because, if she died, the debt was taken care of from the king, and he could take any of the properties when her husband was dead. So, there was a lot of stuff going. Well, maybe they, trumped her up on some charges. I don't think so. I think she did it.
I think it runs in her family.
Oh gosh. And then let's see. So anyway, there was a lot of motivation for the king to make sure that she was found guilty, that's for sure. Um so I'm going to tell you that it's still up, in the air. The modern time Hungarian scholars believe that, that the other people were motivated to set her up. So that's what that is. But let's talk about the ghost, because they're interesting. So the castle is in ruins now. But they do have some of the building. They see faceless Elizabeth. Okay, so they see her ghost, but without the face, full apparitions. Okay, lots of ghost reports for Elizabeth. And then they have claims of paranormal everywhere in the castle. A lot of shadow persons running around. A lot of people see the shadow people. And like I said, they see whole people walking around, white ghosts walking around. Um, there is a report of young girls seeing crying. They see them crying. And then the biggest thing is to hear the voices of the cries and everything of all the victims. So they really feel like that is one of the things, is that they can hear.
Yeah.
So lots of spooky things around there. Cara, did you have anything else about her?
I
Uh,
do. I do.
Cara.
Elizabeth Bathory is one of the people that I absolutely have studied. When she was born a little over 100 years from someone that they believe was a relative of hers, and everyone knows his name, Vlad Dracul.
Dracula.
Yes, Dracula.
Vlad the Impaler.
Vlad
Because
the
then he
Impaler.
have impaled heads around his
Oh,
castle,
not
right?
just that. No,
Not just heads.
no,
He
no.
was
He would
just a
take the
sadistic.
he would take the whole body of someone, and
Just
through their rectum,
yeah, that's right.
and then he would eat dinner while he watched their bodies slowly go down on the thing and kill them.
He
Yes.
he would also dip bread in their blood and drink their blood.
Yes.
He was just as sadistic as her.
Oh gosh.
And a lot of her conspirators, and some of them weren't even conspirators. They were just afraid of her. They were her servants.
Yeah.
They actually said they witnessed her drinking blood, bathing in blood, and that part of that testimony is what helped convict her too, even though they also were sentenced to death and they died horrible deaths. But I do have to talk about how her body was found and what she looked like. Now, mind you, the reason that she did all this with the blood was she had an OCD, like a fear, a phobia of getting old. And some mystic or something told her that bathing in the blood of virgins would keep her young and beautiful, would keep her skin. She would take on the persona of their soft skin and things. And that's when she really started getting to the point where she was killing more and more, and then started going after nobility, the daughters of nobility. And that's what got her busted. When a daughter from nobility disappears, they take action. A peasant,
If she had just
anything.
stayed with the peasants, she probably would have kept getting away with it.
Exactly. But now, when her body was found, she was 54 years old. She looked like a woman of maybe 80. Her nails were so long, and her fingers were all disjointed, and um and her skin looked like leather, like she had aged 100 years in that 4 years. Her hair was long. It went all white. She did not have white hair or even gray hair when she was convicted. Her hair went all white in those 4 years. And they literally said that she looked like and that's probably where a lot of the vampire mystique comes from. She
Yeah.
looked like she had shriveled up from not having the blood, which is very, very, very creepy.
Jeez.
Yes, yes. But she had a lot of one of her conspirators who actually helped with the torture, this man, I cannot remember his name and it's escaping me right now. He gave a lot of information on her. At first he didn't, but then they started like torturing him during like an inquisition.
Oh, gee.
And he started revealing a lot of the things, like he would help, he would go to the different villages around her castle. There were many villages, and that probably helped too. And he would request the peasant girls, to come to the castle to help the countess. And then they would just never be seen again. And there were a lot of peasant families, believe it or not, who went to the authorities and said their daughters went to the castle and never came back. And they did nothing. It wasn't until she started going after nobility that they finally were like, aha, something's going on.
I think the accomplices were actually charged. Part of it was witchcraft.
Yes, they were. There was, because there were also some things that they said that in the torture chamber that were satanic in nature.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Crazy.
So they believed that they were practicing Satanism and witchcraft on these bodies, and she believed that if she whipped these bodies of these girls till she drew blood, that the blood would be better and more vibrant for her to help, her gain their youth and energy. And she honestly believed that, but she also did not look like a 50-year-old when she was walled up, but she sure as heck looked like an 80-year-old when they found her, when they brought her food and she was just dead one day.
I mean, there's been speculation over the years that she had some medical issue that made her need the blood, like the iron in the blood and stuff, like anemia and stuff. But that doesn't explain the torture and the sadistic nature she went about it.
She was nuts.
Yeah.
A monster.
Yeah. And it's mind-boggling how sadistic she was, and I'm sorry, but her accomplices, in my opinion, a lot of them, I wouldn't say they were accomplices. I would say that they kept their mouths shut out of fear.
Yeah,
probably. She just killed them.
Yeah. And I think that's why so many of them did turn on her. She did have one of her right-hand men who didn't turn on her. But yeah, they suffered gruesome deaths.
Oh yeah.
Because of her. Yeah. They were basically tortured and killed. So
yes.
And she didn't care.
Yeah. Well, she should. You know what? When you look at it, her being walled up, that was probably a pretty good sentence for her.
Yeah.
Rather than kill her right away and it's over, that she had all those, years of just being by herself and nothing. So, but can't make up for all those, especially if it was 650. Oh,
yeah.
So, well, even Elizabeth, you're bad. She was bad. We're running out of time right now, so we're going to go back and we're going to revisit this, you guys. Okay, Our book has launched. Cara and I, with the help of Rebecca Wheeler and Brandi, helped us to really make this terrific, wonderful book. Now, it's a pretty big book, and I happen to have one right here. So I have a proof. I have a proof of the book, you guys. It's pretty hefty. Lots of like 221 pages or something, and
27.
Yeah, it's got all kinds of fun things in it. It's a wonderful story. And Portals Through Time is the subtitle. So there's your hint of what happens. But it's funny. We had a lot of good times, laughing at some of the things that happened. It is the first one, right, Cara? In a whole series, you're going to be able to go and on these adventures with these great characters. So,
that's my dog's opinion on it.
Yes. Apparently the dog likes.
Yeah, she was cheering you on. That's her way of going, go get it.
Okay. So please buy it. If you have Kindle Unlimited, go, with our pleasure, go read it.
Yes.
And or you can buy it on Kindle, and also paperback and hardcover. And I just ordered copies. We're going to give you guys chances to get signed copies as well. And we're on a wonderful ride, and Rebecca and Brandi are there with us, and we just are we are so excited. And we're started book 2, so another adventure is going to be coming out really fast. So anyway, Cara, congratulations. Thank you so much for being my, writing partner. And this is just going to entertain so many people and inform them, because you blow me away. You blow me away with your intelligence, your education too, by the way. But the historical facts that you have, and I swear you probably have a photographic memory or really close. And I thank you for all you contributed. It's a wonderful thing, and you've got 2 wonderful books already, and so many more coming. All that success is rolling in, and we're taking Brandi and Rebecca with us.
Yes.
So.
All of you, yes.
Okay. Well, I think it's time to go. Any last words, you guys?
Just, I love you to death. I love Brandi. I love Becky. And I am so excited to be on this journey. We are just on our road. Our path to glory is.
My final words would be this: go get the book.
Yes.
It's so good.
Book. It is worth it. It is a great book.
It is. We have had some people look at it that are giving us the best feedback. And I think it's just so entertaining. I think you're going to love it, you guys. And it just was like God sent, it really was. It's a blessing. So go get it. And then please, after you purchase and you read it, give it a review. Okay, so we will see you next week. I don't know what our topic is next week. I guess we'll let you know.
It is Memorial Day weekend, so we are going to talk about cemeteries, haunted cemeteries.
Oh, that's always fun.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm writing a note. Okay, you guys, we got to go. And thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next Saturday. Bye-bye, you guys.
Bye.